My name is Angie Barrios, and in this presentation, I will be discussing the link between a positive school climate and the impact it can have on academic success. I have been a middle school teacher for 17 years in a small suburb of Los Angeles. During those years, I have come across numerous students with countless problems and issues that they carry with them in and out of the school grounds. It is my firmest belief that regardless of how deeply rooted these problems are, a student can succeed in a safe school environment. For this presentation, I will focus primarily on minority students of low-income neighborhoods and how a positive school climate can improve academic achievement among this population. It is no secret that the achievement gap between low income and non low income students is a social problem that needs to be remedied. The much debated question, though, is how can such an enormous and long standing problem be fixed? In California, the English achievement gap between economically disadvantaged and wealthy students, according to the results from the 2016 state exams, was 33%. Additionally, there was a 32% gap in math standards between these two populations. The question is whether there is a way to narrow this gap and place all students on a more equal playing field regardless of income. A factor that must be considered when analyzing achievement gap is that of race. 65% of African American students and 62% of Latino students nationwide are considered to be low-income students. According to the Stanford Graduate School of Education, who compiled data from over 200 million test scores, school districts with large minority populations have large achievement gaps between Black and Hispanic students compared with their counterparts. The wealthier and poorest districts have average performance levels of more than 4 grade levels apart. They also found that average test scores of Black students are on average roughly 2 grade levels lower than those of white students in the same district. The Hispanic to white difference is roughly 1.5 grade levels. Achievement gaps are larger in districts where Black and Hispanic students attend higher poverty schools than their white peers. Lastly, achievement gaps are larger where parents on average have high levels of educational attainment. So the question is, why is there such a disparity in achievement gaps between low-income students and non-low-income students? In this slide, we will discuss several stressors that low-income students encounter in their lives due to their living conditions. These stressors impact a student's ability to achieve academic success in the classroom. Along with navigating through rigorous curriculum and meeting the behavioral expectations of various teachers, students of low socioeconomic status also have the burden of dealing with problems to simply survive. Three main stressors that impact students of this population are a lack of parental support, neighborhood problems, and a lack of school guidance. These factors play a pivotal role in the academic achievement gap that exists in our nation's schools. The first stressor that plagues students of low socioeconomic status is parental support. Low income students typically have parents who lack the time necessary to parent effectively because they are working long hours at low paying jobs to simply put food on the table. Many of these parents, either due to the vicious cycle of unequal access to education or a result of their upbringing, do not have a high school diploma. This lack of education acts as a barrier for parents to assist their children in schoolwork or in their academic endeavors. In addition, many low income students have single parent homes and do not have a dual parent household to share in the duties of raising their children. The absence of a traditional household where parents have the means to provide time and support causes students to lack strict discipline, to lack structure in their lives, and most importantly, to lack academic assistance. This reality of limited parental support among low income students contributes to the academic achievement gap we see today. A second stressor that may affect students' academic achievement from low income neighborhoods is neighborhood problems. Included in neighborhood problems are the lack of resources and basic school supplies needed to perform well in school. Students from impoverished neighborhoods may not have access to a well stocked library, they may lack technological resources, or they may not have access to an adult to assist with schoolwork. These factors can inhibit a student's ability to obtain the assistance needed to perform well in school. In addition, in low income neighborhoods, there is plenty of crime and violence that the student is susceptible to and comes in contact with regularly. Students may get caught up in this life of crime, and this behavior then becomes a vicious cycle. This minimizes the availability of real life role models in low income neighborhoods. A third stressor that can impact academic achievement for students of low socioeconomic status is a lack of school support. Students from low income neighborhoods who go to school with a wide variety of personal issues and added stress tend to misbehave and act out more than students from economically advantaged neighborhoods. Oftentimes, teachers are ill equipped to manage this type of behavior. This, combined with large class sizes, not only make classroom management a challenge, but it also creates work overload for teachers. Generally, this combination of factors causes high teacher turnover rates in these low income schools. Teacher instability causes problems for these students because there is a lack of consistency. A lack of consistent, qualified teachers can cause gaps in learning among these students. The effects of the stressors I have just discussed leads to the disparities we see in education among the wealthy and economically disadvantaged students. These problems manifest themselves in two areas: academic failure, and behavior problems. 80% of low income students are reading below grade level. Last year in California, 21% of low income students met the state requirements in math. Behavior problems are imminent in low socioeconomic schools. Low income students, more than their wealthier peers, have a tendency to argue with teachers. In my experience, these combative responses from students typically arise due to their own personal struggles that they are dealing with, both emotionally and physically. Low income schools also have issues with truancy. Oftentimes, especially in middle and high school, these students are responsible for getting to school on their own with no one at home to assure safe arrival at school. In addition, these middle and high school students are oftentimes responsible not only for themselves, but for younger siblings. In addition, low income schools have more on campus physical altercations among students. These behavior problems in the classroom affect the teacher's ability to teach the necessary content. Constant interruptions to remedy behavior issues cause students to obtain less instructional time. So the question remains, how can educators and administrators combat these inevitable stressors that students from low income neighborhoods face? I believe that providing a positive school climate where school personnel ensures a safe and nurturing environment can be a step in the right direction to solve this problem, a step in narrowing the achievement gap. So, what does a positive school climate entail? A positive school climate means having school-wide expectations and rewards and consequences for adhering to or breaking those expectations. A positive school climate means having positive student-teacher rapport. And lastly, a positive school climate means providing access to mental and physical safety for all students. By providing a positive school climate, students will have a sense that school is a place where adults care for their well being. It is a place where they can succeed and have access to knowledge. And it is a place where they don't have to worry about the stressors of living a life of poverty. One such way to establish a positive school climate is to establish behavioral expectations that students are expected to adhere to. A program that was just adopted by my school district is PBIS, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. One component of this problem is to establish a set of behavioral expectations in different areas of the school, for example, in the classroom, the cafeteria, or the hallways. It requires us to develop and post matrices in all areas of the school to list the ways students are expected to behave. Students are rewarded for following the rules through free time, raffles, or treats, for example. Students who have a challenging time following the rules will serve a detention, they will be counseled by administration, and if needed, they will receive counseling from our school psychologists. This program is very detailed, and there are many components that work together to establish a positive atmosphere for the students. It also establishes behavior expectations that are enforced and that students are held accountable for. Students in low-income neighborhoods may not always have these guidelines that are followed with consistency and fidelity due to the stressors I previously discussed. One of the most overlooked yet integral components to establishing and maintaining a positive school climate is student teacher rapport. Teachers must be trained to build a trusting relationship with students. Oftentimes, as teachers, we become overly concerned with getting through all of the mandated state standards, and we tend to forget that we cannot get through to a student who has more pressing issues and stressors at home, that academic achievement is the last thing on their mind. It is important for teachers to remember to treat students with dignity and respect. Although they are children, they are still human. Many times, a teacher expects respect from students, however, they don't give students that mutual respect. It has been my experience with middle school students that they think they are mature, yet they have many tendencies that show otherwise. I treat my students with respect. I do not talk down to them, and it is very rare for me to raise my voice at a student. I feel that it is this relationship that I have established with my students that makes them want to work for me and makes them feel like they do not want to disappoint me. Lastly, a positive school environment is one where students feel like they belong. This can manifest itself in various ways. It can happen through counseling. Oftentimes, students simply want to be heard. Students respond well to adults who acknowledge that the personal issues they are going through are of importance. It is common for students to show outward signs of pain and struggle through fights, classroom disruptions, defiance, and incomplete assignments. They are reaching out for help. As adults in the school setting, we can become aware and refer them to counselors or school psychologists. Another aspect of a positive school climate is one where students feel safe physically. All adults on campus must be vigilant about spotting bullying and, most importantly, having no tolerance for it. If an incident of bullying is detected, it should be handled in a timely manner. Lastly is the issue with school facilities. This is more of a district issue, but a well maintained school makes it a more pleasurable place to be. The gap in academic achievement among low income students and their more privileged peers is one that remains a thorn in the side of educators who teach in low income neighborhoods. It is an issue that seems to have no solution, but I feel if we as teachers stop placing blame on parents and home environments, things we cannot change, the issue will continue to grow. We must instead consider the things we can change. We can change what we do in our classrooms. We can change the culture of our schools. And we can change our mindsets to be more empathetic to our students' needs.